Welcome to the Silver Screen Project, where we look back at a series of films in anticipation of an exciting new cinema release.
We recently watched the 80s classic Top Gun in preparation for the new release Top Gun Maverick, and we have literally just left the cinema to come and record our thoughts on the new Tom Cruise blockbuster. Sam, what did you think of Top Gun Maverick?
I thought it was fantastic.
I had so much fun.
I think we're both still pretty pumped. We came out. Lewis, you said something along the lines of, that was a genuine thrill ride.
It really was. I think I enjoyed that more than the original.
I would 100% say. A part of it's the cinema experience, which totally. I know Tom Cruise is a big fan of the cinema experience, but he certainly delivered in this case, I would say.
Yeah, and it also helps, it's very, very 80s, but it is a modern film.
Yeah.
It's kind of the perfect mix of playing on the nostalgia whilst also being a 2022 film. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. As did there was an older gentleman sitting next to me in the cinema and was having the time of his life.
Oh, bless him.
Clearly loved the original film.
Probably went to see it in the cinema when it came out.
He probably did. It did kind of make me think it would have been a great experience to see this come out in the original in the cinemas
and come back for it. Yeah, we'll keep our thoughts spoiler free for the first couple of minutes, and we'll give some clear warning before we delve into the secrets this film had for us.
Yeah, I think that's a good. I don't think the trailer showed too much.
Yeah,
it kind of set the scene and built the relationships, but I think like the first one, the characters are great.
Yeah.
You get Miles Teller playing Goose's son, and he looks a lot like Goose.
He does. They've done well there with the casting.
And then the other pilots like Phoenix, Hangman, Bob. They were all great fun, and they kind of showed their kind of laddie culture whilst also being these guys are great.
It had that kind of, I said in the last episode we talked about the original, it was kind of like a sports film in terms of very competitive nature. They had that in this, but I think in a more kind of modern, realistic way, where they were still kind of macho in a lot of senses, but kind of slightly more kind of accepting of each other and less kind of horrible to each other in a lot of ways.
Particularly shown by the fact that Phoenix is a woman, which kind of shows a more modern take.
Yeah.
Again, like the first one, I think all the plane stuff was great.
Yeah, much more kind of in depth in this one. I think they probably did. Well, they did all of it for real. Maybe not all of it, but most of it for real. Plus some probably CGI that I didn't really notice.
No, it was all for real. I read that Tom Cruise is insistent of having no CGI, including the bits when they're in the planes was all filmed with them actually in the planes.
I saw an interview with Miles Teller where he was saying they had little camera rigs in there, and they, the reactions were real for the most part, kind of thing.
Yeah, I also think in comparison to the first one slight criticism we had was that it at times was hard to follow, like the dogfights and the flying.
Yeah.
I think this is a bit easier to follow, partly based on how the film is set up and what they're doing.
Yeah.
But you can actually sense what's going on, and it's kind of easier to tell the difference between the planes and things like that.
They make a bigger effort in that sense, and it's much cleaner in a lot of ways as well.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah. But I don't know how much more we can kind of say. I know that's the kind of very surface level thoughts, but I mean, they hit on a lot of nostalgia points that you said. We won't go into any depth there, but there's certain returning faces. Yeah. There's certain kind of moments that hark back to the original.
There is actually, we probably can say the first 30 seconds is almost shot for shot.
Yeah, it's just a modern redo.
Danger Zone. Even the opening credits are in that 80s font.
Yeah, and they do a similar thing with the end credits with the kind of freeze frames of the cast and stuff, don't they? Yeah. But I don't feel that it kind of relied on the nostalgia too much.
No.
There was moments kind of maybe at the start and the end that kind of, like I say, hark back, but it stood very well on its own.
Yeah.
If you hadn't seen the original, I don't think it would have really impacted you too much.
No, because there is the plot element that Miles Teller plays Goose's son.
Yes.
But I think the context is given in the film pretty clearly.
We get some actual clips, don't we, from the original film as well. So it helps, the emotional side if you know it, and the older guy sitting next to you probably testified to that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I think it stands alone very well.
And I would also put in, if you love kind of the 80s cliches of the original, this one is not short of them at all.
Yeah,
which is quite rare in modern films, going full 80s cliche, and they do it whilst not a detriment to the film at all. I feel it was great fun. It was fist pumping action.
Yeah.
I was genuinely like on the edge of my seat for the last act.
That last act was fantastic. Yeah, I really liked it. I think that's a good time to go into spoilers there. So you've had your fair warning if you haven't seen it yet, which a lot of people won't, because we saw it seemingly before the rest of the world in a lot of places. So we're on the pulse here. But yeah, going into it, the opening scene is the kind of Mach 10 test pilot kind of part, which I thought was a really good introduction back to Maverick. You see his character, he is a Maverick, kind of very on the nose in a lot of ways.
And it kind of shows that Tom Cruise has slotted straight back into this character. Yeah. It's a very Tom Cruise character.
It is, yeah.
Straight away, you feel like you are back in this universe and you know the character, who he is, what he's been doing, and he's straight in. I think one thing this has an advantage over the first one. I think the plot and the mission is a lot clearer.
Yeah.
In the first one, it's a lot of just them competing, and then there's a mission. And there's a thing
in this, from the immediate, he gets pulled back into Top Gun, and he gets given this mission to set the new kind of cast up for, doesn't he?
Yeah, and the whole film is them preparing for the mission, which is then the final act.
Yeah.
And it kind of helps guide your cinema experience. You know what's coming. You kind of know what they're all training for.
And
it's really
they're
good
training
fun.
Specifically for that. And we were talking about it after we came out of cinema. There's parts where they're doing the kind of canyon run. It's almost like a trench run kind of situation.
Yeah, it certainly
when
is.
they do the thing of like, you've got to hit that small target. It's like, this is very Star Wars.
It really is.
But they do stuff that, especially that original Star Wars, didn't do. And even I was thinking some of the dogfighting stuff was a bit like Poe Dameron stuff in the newer Star Wars.
Yeah, definitely.
But like up to like 12, do you know what I mean? Like more realistic.
There's some like iconic moves that Maverick pulls in the first film, and they do some of them again, but also pull up some new ones.
Yeah, there's a move that the enemy fighter uses again that was like, I was like, what the fuck? And they literally all say like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, and
it's like a sideways spin version. They call it a Cobra something, I think, when he does it, like the brake thing, air brake thing.
And the enemy has kind of a twist on that, and it's like, fuck yeah. Like, it is really cool.
Like, it's really cool. Well, yeah, we'll talk about that last bit. We'll skip around a bit, but that last kind of act there where they actually do the mission, I thought was fantastic. Going through and the adrenaline pumping, there's little snags and stuff along the way.
It's one of those, like, the film being the film it is, you know they're going to succeed in the mission, and they do. But then it's stuff happens after, which then leaves you clueless.
The whole thing with John Hamm's character is he seems kind of just fussed about getting the explosion done and not about them surviving. And that's kind of the tension going through the training. And that's like the second whole half of the
actual mission is kind of the setup for the actual big action. And John Hamm's character does then kind of be like, no, he wants them to survive.
Because you can see that the whole time. Because John Hamm's never like, normally not really like a bad guy.
Yeah.
He kind of plays a little bit against type throughout. But you get that sense that he's the guy who he wants the mission to go well. And he does care about the people, but he's kind of in the middle of like being a bit cold and not.
And it really pulls on your heartstrings. So we are into spoilers, and I genuinely thought Maverick was dead at one point.
Because there's the setup where you're like, oh my god, you know,
it's like, oh, we'll talk when we get back.
And me and Lewis were like almost laughing at the cinema, like, oh god, it's like the retirement thing. It's like 2 days to retire.
But then I also thought Rooster was dead, and then even then you get Hangman come in. I thought it was great use of his character when he's kind of he's essentially the Iceman of this cohort,
and they have that moment at the end. This is exactly the same thing.
But he's not picked to go on the mission.
But
he's not bitter about it.
No,
you see shots of him in his plane, like cheering them on, and then he comes and saves the day at the end.
This is what I mean, where they kind of take away some of that kind of bravado from the original, and people kind of are slightly more realistic and supportive of each other.
Yeah, because they are all on the same team.
And that guy, he's called Glenn Powell, the actor who plays him. Did you see that he was at one point in the running for Rooster?
Yes, I did.
And also Nicholas Hoult as well was going to be him. Did you see
but
that?
I think Miles Teller was good casting. I've never been massively into Miles Teller.
No. We've actually covered him in another project before.
Fan Four Stick wasn't great. But he was in Project X that we watched.
As himself.
But he was great in this, and he looked like Goose.
Yeah, they really nailed the moustache and the sunglasses look.
And I thought Miles Teller was great. I think everyone was good in this, but Miles Teller was like oh yeah, I really believe that this character
Yeah,
is like this person we're supposed to believe he is.
And after the part that you said where they both get shot down kind of individually there, and they have this kind of bonding moment, and then they have the moment where it's almost like, I thought of it as like the Millennium Falcon moment from Force Awakens, where they're back in the original plane, and it's like, oh, here's the old plane, and it's like him and Goose again together, you know, spiritually there with the F-14 or whatever it is.
And they reference Goose quite a lot in this film, both of them talking to him.
Yeah. And there's the moment you said where Goose is like, Dad, speak to me, and then Maverick speaks to him. Then it's like, oh yeah, like, he's your real dad.
this film is not subtle in any way.
But it's, you know, it's not a subtle. It's not meant to be.
If you're going in to watch Top Gun Maverick, this is what you're kind of hoping for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had way more fun with this than I kind of thought I was going to.
Yeah, I think if we'd watched it on like streaming or something, it wouldn't have quite had the same kind of impact it does.
Yeah.
And we had pretty good seats in the cinema. It was quite an empty cinema, so we kind of like good kind of vibes, I think.
Yeah.
There was a moment that is kind of moving into dislikes in some ways, where both me and Lewis were kind of laughing about the way that the Iceman stuff starts going, because a lot of the Iceman is texting Maverick for like the first half of the film, and I knew that Val Kilmer has throat cancer in real life, so I thought, right, they're probably, you know, going to save him as a waving cameo at the end or something, because he does come up in the credits at the start. And then he goes to visit him, and they kind of lean fully into that, and there's a quite emotional scene that's mainly Tom Cruise acting against him kind of thing.
And then when Val Kilmer's Iceman does talk, it's like it does pull on your heartstrings quite a bit, and then obviously his character dies, and you're like, this film does genuinely make you feel like it's an emotional film. It
does, and I don't think a lot of Tom Cruise films really do that for me. I find that, you know, the Mission Impossible films, the ones I've seen, they're great films in a lot of ways,
and
but
the action's fun.
But they don't really, like you say, tug on the heart.
And like, particularly as I said, the bit that it's kind of, you think Maverick's died, I was genuinely kind of welling up a little bit, being like, because he literally does it to save Rooster. It's kind of like, he was the cause of Rooster's father dying, and this is him getting back.
And that's the kind of tension when they talk about it afterwards as well. And then it turns into quite a funny moment when they're out of the snow.
But the tension is built up really well. Like, it's a really well paced, well set up film where you genuinely go along with everything they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think considering, you know, a lot of films these days are kind of over 2 hours, and a lot of films you sit through it and there's moments where you're like, oh, this could have been less than this. I think this, like you say, the pace was really good. I don't think it should have been any longer, and it probably could have been shorter, as most films could, but I didn't feel that watching it.
I totally agree. Moving into the negatives, I think like the first one, did feel like this one had a bit of a pointless love story.
Yes.
But it's nowhere near as central to the film as in the first one.
No, I did think it was funny when it goes into like the love scene there, and then they just kiss, and then it cuts to them in bed after, and it's like, the audience doesn't want to see two 50-year-olds having sex.
But yeah, they touch on it, and I'm like, I can...
Was the implication that it was his kid at all? I don't think so,
no,
because at the end I kind of got that impression.
I think the daughter says that her dad is with his wife in Hawaii.
Yeah, but I thought maybe because they've been together before,
right?
Maybe that was something they were going to do at one point, kind of thing.
I think again, like the first one, the end mission, the villains are just faceless bad guys.
Yeah,
but I think it kind of works. Like you kind of. Yeah, okay, whatever, they are bad guys. I think for this type of film, you don't necessarily need to know. I know I gave that as a criticism of the first film.
I think it works better in this because we know it's coming as well. We're never introduced to like a fist waving dictator at any point. So there's no reason. We're not built up any expectations.
Like, here's the mission.
Yeah,
and I don't really need to talk.
And it's also the way it would be as a fighter pilot. You wouldn't have a face to the enemy, and it's kind of the kind of weird moral gray ground.
Gray area.
Yeah.
One other thing, I did think the film was mostly predictable.
Yeah.
Up until they complete the mission, and then it kind of
you don't really know what's happening.
But like the whole thing, like, Tom Cruise is he's obviously gonna do the mission. Like...
Well, the training itself was I think much better than the first one, but there was moments where it's like, okay, there's not really stakes here, apart from that one part where something goes wrong with the G-force stuff and the guy
Yeah.
passes out. And then once that's solved, and you were saying, Lewis, about he uses the tone of the beeper thing when he locks onto him. That was kind
to
of
wake up. Yeah, it was
very
cool,
kind
and
of
it's smart
creative
using
thing.
the planes.
Yeah, because I was like, how is he going to do it? Is he going to fly next to him and like
Yeah.
knock on the window? And
Yeah.
then immediately after you get the bird strike. So there's some cool tension in that, which I didn't kind of see coming necessarily.
Yeah, and it kind of shows both the characters and the audience that people may die in this.
Yeah. And we get that from John Hamm. He's very kind of specific about stuff. But yeah, it's a real demonstration of that kind of later on. Yeah.
Unlike the first one, nobody dies in this, do they?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I was kind of expecting someone to die during that training there.
But they all made it through.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say is that it's not necessarily a negative. We touched on it with the music there. I was expecting the songs to kind of come back a little bit more. It Take My Breath Away? I was kind of expecting that to show up.
I have written down as a negative that we only hear Danger Zone once.
And that as well, yeah.
Which is in that first bit
I suppose
it replicates the first
Take My
film.
Breath Away was the song with that character, it wouldn't make sense for them to reuse
I would have liked one more Danger Zone in like the final act, just to really get the heart pumping.
Yeah, I mean the score was Hans Zimmer, and I think generally speaking was really good, and there was a nice use of score because there was moments without score. Like when Maverick's doing the run to show them he can do it, there's no score
and it helps build the tension because you can hear like beeping,
and his kind of like his breathing and his kind of grunting as he's
I didn't really think about it at the time, but the breathing is quite heavy in this, which you don't really notice in the first one. When they're going through this canyon and it's high speeds, quick turns,
feel like the body, the forces on the body.
Yeah, and it really it adds to the tension again.
Totally.
But yeah, overall, I thought that was great fun. I've got way more positives than negatives.
You've got any more trivia stuff? I've got just one little bit I haven't mentioned.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of small bits. One is 36 years after the original. This is the longest it's taken for a sequel of a film in film history.
Right, okay.
And like it was one thing of like, oh yeah, they're making a sequel of a film that was nearly 40 years ago. But yeah, it's literally the longest gap between film 1 and film 2 in history.
I saw that they started development in around 2010, and Tony Scott, who directed the original, was really involved, and he wrote the original treatment of the scripts. But then he passed away in 2012, so it really kind of put a halt on it. And then I think Tom Cruise still was really passionate, and Jerry Bruckheimer, the producer, really had like this vision for it with Tom Cruise. So they finally got it made, almost 10 years on from that again. So
nice. The other bit I've got quickly is Tom Cruise personally designed a 3-month aviation training course for the new actors to become ready to handle the F-18. Considering in the first film was the first time the training for that was the first time he'd been in a plane.
And that was what set him on his path.
And now 36 years later, he's designing the training for all the actors. Because as we said, it's all real. They are all really flying.
Yeah.
So that's just quite fun. And it's very Tom Cruise. It's Tom Cruise at his best, kind of.
It is, yeah. And it's nice to see him come back round after all the Mission Impossible stuff he's done, where he's kind of pushed the boundary. Yeah. It's nice to see him come back to kind of his roots almost, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Do you have trivia?
No, those are my two bits there. Just the Tony Scott and the Glenn Powell bit there.
Excellent. So that is our thoughts on Top Gun Maverick. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. There's one last thing to ask, which is we talked about how much Top Gun hyped us up for this film. So Sam, do you think Top Gun Maverick lived up to the hype? Prod yes or prod no?
I'm trying to think of a way to say more prod yes, but yes, prod yes.
Prod yes.
I feel the need for prod yes.
Don't think, just prod yes.
There we go.
What
about yourself?
It completely blew my expectations out of the water. I kind of said to you as the film started, like, I don't think I can't remember the last time in a cinema I've been kind of so indifferent to the film I'm out to see. Usually I'll go to see stuff that I'm really looking forward to.
There's a lot of this is a sequel, but lots of them are more recent sequels, and we've kind of got on a hype train a little bit.
If we weren't doing this, I probably wouldn't have gone to cinema to see this.
And I'm very glad we did.
I'm very glad I did, because that was a blast.
It was a thrill ride, as you said.
So I hope you all enjoyed that as much as we did.
Please let us know your thoughts. I think you're about to say.
Yeah, get in touch. You can listen to all our details on the project.
Yeah.
And we look forward to hearing from you for our next Silver Screen project, which is, as of yet, unknown
to you anyway. We actually saw a trailer that was for what we're doing, but we'll leave that up to your imagination.
We shall. So as always, it's been a pleasure having you along, and I will hear you next time.
I'll see you in the skies.
Don't think, just do it.
Bye.